On NBA Today, former NBA player and assistant coach Damon Jones, he pled guilty in federal court today. He became the first defendant to do so. Now, Jones admitted to using insider information tied to his NBA relationships, including information involving LeBron James and Anthony Davis, as part of a conspiracy to defraud sportsbooks. And sentencing is in early 2027. So for more, we bring in our ESPN legal analyst, Ryan Smith. Ryan, how significant is it that Jones pleaded guilty and that he is the first here to do so?
It's significant because he's involved in both cases, and that makes him incredibly important to this situation. He got up in court and admitted not only his role in the sports gambling case, but he also admitted to being a face card in the poker rigging case, to bringing in marks, and even admitting that he knew the scheme, he knew what was going on, and he knew that there were victims in this case. And that becomes incredibly important for prosecutors. It validates their entire case. And now the thing is, all the other co-defendants out there, the dozens of co-defendants in this case, they now look at this and wonder, what is happening? Do I need to start thinking about making a deal? And what is out there that prosecutors have on me? So by him coming forward and him being the first, intersecting with both cases, it becomes a huge win for prosecutors. You mentioned intersecting with both cases and also the fact that this could have other impacts on co-defendants. What ripple effect could this have specifically on Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups? Yeah, Malika, these things tend to have a domino effect. So when one person comes forward, others start thinking about coming forward. And the primary thing ends up being, well, what will others say about me? And if I wait too long, will I end up with a worse deal? It tends to be that the longer you wait, the worse the deals get. So if you talk about somebody like Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups, both have pled not guilty, both have seemingly not shown a willingness to do plea deals. I think no matter what, you have to wonder, what will others coming forward perhaps say about me? I think Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier have been very clear about how they've not done anything wrong. They've tried to say that through their lawyers. But what do you do when another defendant comes forward trying to make a deal and says, yeah, other people were involved and it might have been one of these guys? So I think very much like Damon Jones, he got up today and admitted what he did, but he said he and his co-conspirators. That means other defendants in this case, and that, I think, is what Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier have to worry about. Will others come forward and say something about them, and that puts pressure on them? Yeah, Ryan, that is certainly noteworthy, and we will continue to follow this story as it develops. Thank you very much for...
Coach Damon Jones changing his plea to guilty in 2 different federal gambling cases. Jones was accused of relaying non-public injury information to bettors in one case and of being involved in rigged mafia-backed poker games in the other case. He is the first person of the more than 30 accused to plead guilty. Here's what you need to know. While Jones has pled guilty, NBA guard Terry Rozier and Basketball Hall of Famer Chauncey Billups have pled not guilty to their respective charges. Rozier was charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering in an alleged gambling scheme. Billups was charged with profiting from rigged poker games involving several mafia figures. Our legal analyst, Ryan Smith, joining us now. Ryan, what's your takeaway from what happened at Damon Jones' plea hearings today?
Biggest takeaway for me is that he gets up in court and admits his role in prosecutors' scheme that they've outlined here, and that's huge for them because he basically validates their theory of the case. This is them saying all along, there were these rigged poker games, there was this sports gambling ring based on insider information, and he's standing up there and basically saying, yes, I was a part of it and I did it. What happens next ends up being big because of what happened today. Does this cause a domino effect among all the other defendants, or at least many of them, to then come forward? Because in a case like this, a lot of times, the first person to come in to get the deal gets the best deal, and the people who come in later and later, their deals get progressively worse.
I remember you saying that before when the story first broke. So take us through how the dominoes could fall with Chauncey and Terry and the other defendants.
This is where it gets really interesting because right now they've pled not guilty. Now, we are learning, it seems that Damon Jones is not going to be a cooperating witness. What that means is he wouldn't testify against others in this case. That could be huge here because that means there's not a direct impact on Rozier or Billups because he wouldn't be necessarily testifying against them. But the indirect part is what gets it done here because indirectly, if defendant after defendant after defendant comes forward and starts making deals and saying, I was involved in this, and one of them says, I was involved in something with you, perhaps Rozier or Billups, not saying that they were, but if that happens, that puts pressure indirectly on them to decide, what do we do about this situation? do we have to make a deal as well, even though, as Rozier and Billups have kind of felt so far, we've done nothing wrong?
There was news Monday that prosecutors are looking to file possibly additional charges against Terry Rozier. What more can you tell us about that?
This was a bombshell for him and his lawyers. They had a motion to dismiss hearing. They were trying to get all the charges thrown out, and prosecutors told them a couple hours before, we're filing additional charges against you. Solicitation of a bribe is what we plan on filing. That is big. And I think when this story broke, a lot of people said, wow, they're charged with money laundering conspiracy and wire fraud conspiracy. But you forget all of these investigations are ongoing. Prosecutors don't stop. They keep digging. They keep trying to find more. And when they find evidence, they can charge it. This is a superseding indictment they're now filing. But the big thing for all the defendants in this case is you never know if they can come forward with more charges. If they do, does that put pressure on you to come forward? Because you were facing two things, now you're facing a third thing or a fourth thing. The more that happens, the more prosecutors are in some ways trying to put pressure on defendants to make a deal and come clean. At the end of this, they want justice and to figure it all out, and that could push them to do it.
We'll be watching this. Ryan Smith, thank you. And all eyes will be on Madison Square Garden for Game 5 tonight, when the Knicks look to take the lead in a tied series against the Hawks. Entering today, teams in NBA playoff history that win Game 5 of a tied best-of-7 series win that series 82% of the time. All three times last postseason, the team that won to go up 3-2 won the series. It is a pleasure to spend a few moments with the one and only Michael Wilbon. Mr. Wilbon, you will be in the building when the Knicks and Hawks face off in Game 5 tonight.
Can't wait.
How does New York win this game tonight and take control of this series?
You know, Jay, I don't think there are any, real secrets here. They're going to have to come to depend quickly and heavily on the guys that they pay to be their stars, and that would be Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, for starters. And it doesn't mean that they're not going to get the contributions necessarily from Bridges and Anunoby, and, they're going to have to get those contributions as well. But we saw what happened when they ran the offense through Cat. They got a real lift out of him in Game 4 in Atlanta. I don't know that you can go to that without Atlanta adjusting. Karl Anthony Towns really in the playmaker role. That was, a really nice touch, a nice stroke by Mike Brown and his staff, and Karl Anthony Towns executing it. But I think Atlanta's going to be ready for that, and you're going to see and need to see more of Jalen Brunson. We've seen this from Jalen Brunson. We've seen him go for 40-plus late in the series, in the Game 5, in Madison Square Garden. I think you're going to need to see something like that. Maybe not that point total, but that kind of engagement and being on the offensive and being aggressive. So you're looking at Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns for starters, and then support from the gang.
Let's stay in the East. The Pistons on the brink of being eliminated as a 1 seed. What's the biggest thing that's gone wrong for Detroit?
Turnovers. I mean, my goodness. When your best player, Cade Cunningham, who I know, could have been a first-team player. He may wind up being on the first team. I certainly voted him the first person on my second team. When he has a historic number of turnovers, well, I think it's 28 in the series and 24 in the last 3 games. That's an unbelievable number of turnovers. So it speaks to what pressure defense is doing to Detroit and Cade, specifically in the playoffs, which may not have shown up in the regular season. And it also highlights a weakness, Jay, that we've already known from Detroit, not having a secondary scorer, not having a person in there that he can rely on that can take pressure off him, that can go and get Detroit 22 to 28 points, even on nights that Cade has a big scoring night. The Pistons don't have that yet, and he is struggling against that defense, and I don't know where you go from here if you're Detroit. It's not like you can make a roster addition in the middle of the playoffs.
No, you cannot. All right, let's head over to the West. Wemby and the Spurs, 3-1 lead on the Blazers. It's the first ever playoff series for Wemby in this iteration of San Antonio. What are your expectations for this team the rest of the way?
Jay, my expectations aren't as high as many others, including my colleagues, who are constantly making fun of me because I'm obsessed with Wembanyama. Like everybody with any sense, common sense, should be obsessed with watching him and appreciating him, savoring him. I am. But I still believe in the heartache that has been historic in the playoffs for young playoff teams, and that's what San Antonio still is. I expect San Antonio to finish off Portland. I expect San Antonio then to beat either a reduced Minnesota team, reduced because of their backcourt injuries, or even Denver, which is not itself and not getting a normal contribution from Peyton Watson, let's just say. But then there would be an epic series on deck with Oklahoma City. And I hope to see that series. Sorry if it sounds like I'm rooting. I'm rooting to see Victor Wembanyama go forward. I'm rooting to see if his young cohorts, if Harper and Castle can play above their years, as we've seen them do all season and so far in the short sample size of playoffs, can they continue that if they get to a series against Oklahoma City? I don't even know if they would have done it against Minnesota if Minnesota was whole. But Minnesota isn't whole, and Minnesota's going to be doing all it can just to get that one win from Denver in advance. But I expect San Antonio to go through that next round and then get to OKC, and we'll really see what matters.
That segues perfectly to my last question. The defending champion Thunder sweep Phoenix, are now waiting for the winner of Lakers Rockets. So big picture, who's beating OKC this postseason?
I got two maybes for you, Jay. Maybe San Antonio, if all things go right. Again, I don't necessarily expect that. And maybe Boston, which has been there, done this, at least the crux of that team. And when you got Jason Tatum playing like, I know he says he's not 100%. Who can tell the difference? Maybe somebody on the coaching staff, maybe opponents guarding him. I don't think that the rest of us can. Maybe Boston. I know I didn't include the Knicks in that number. I don't know that I'm ready to include the Knicks in that number. We'll see what we see tonight in the rest of this Atlanta series. Maybe San Antonio, maybe Boston. I don't even know that Denver, who I had originally being able to beat OKC, don't know if they're in that number now either. Don't know if they could advance through the first round.
All right, I'm told I have a little more time with you, which is great, because there's something I want to ask you about. There have been a few scuffles and some trash talking in these playoffs. What do you make of the way the players have been getting into it with each other?
I love it. It's a requisite. It's what basketball ought to be. Look, I got an 18-year-old who for the last 4 years has been playing AAU basketball. And I understand that all these kids know each other. They play in national tournaments. They all know each other. And by the time these guys get to be in their second and third year in the league, they know each other. They don't have a healthy hate usually for each other. And I know people at home are saying, well, why is he saying that? Because that's what this league was founded on. You can go all the way back to the 1950s, in the original vintage years of the league. When you see this kind of interaction, though, I'm not mad at Joker for going after Jaden McDaniels, and I'm not mad at him for going back at Joker. That's what rivals do. And it's loud. You can hear it. I want to hear it and see that heat. That's what pro basketball ought to be, particularly in the playoffs. Enough love fest. This isn't the AAU. It's the NBA playoffs.
Agreed, 100%. Okay, best NBA trash talker of all time. Who is it?
Of all time, I don't know if I can go. Jay, I got an all-time trash talking team.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to start with Gary Payton. Here it is right here. Gary Payton, Kevin Garnett, the great Kobe Bryant, Michael Jeffrey Jordan, of course, and Larry Bird. Bird and Jordan might set themselves apart. And by the way, Draymond Green and Charles Barkley, Draymond's in a separate category because he's active. And Draymond Green and Charles was left trash talking than it was just chatter through the entire game. Sometimes with some of us on press row, some things I won't repeat, but Charles knows what he said.
And I saw you had Reggie there. You need Spike for that one. That's a good one.
Can't forget Reggie Miller as well.
Indeed.
Can't forget Reggie.
Michael Wilbon, my brother, appreciate the insight. Thanks for hanging with us.
Thanks, Jay.